Regie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is episode 2 of Comics Today, a series that I recently started and that I will be doing on a weekly basis every single Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And the show is essentially organized into 3 different segments. In segment 1, we spend a little bit of time talking about some comics that you guys may have picked up earlier today at your local comic shops that you are excited about. If I read any comics, I may chime into that conversation. And then in like segment 2 and 3, we talk about some news and current events that may be top of mind for you guys. But certainly are top of mind for me because they are on my agenda. And along the way, we actually have a couple of surprises. And I will tell you, this show tonight is full of some different stuff. I literally came up with this idea at the end of last week's show. I was like, I got it. I got episode 2. And I went over to my whiteboard and I wrote it down. And I immediately started organizing my thoughts around this show. So fingers crossed that I am able to successfully pull this one off because there's a lot of stuff that is going to be happening. So fingers crossed. In just a second, I am going to come to the chat and I want to say hello to some comic swoldiers that are in the chat. But what I want to do is I want to know if you went to your local comic shop today, what did you pick up? And then also, if you read some books, what are you excited about after you read it? Or if you haven't read it, what are you excited about reading? That's how I'm going to do the roll call, is by running down those that have actually hit up the LCS, that have picked some stuff up, that have read some stuff, or are excited about reading some stuff. So in the comments section, go ahead and throw that stuff up there. And I'm going to work my way through the list as best I can. And I saw a bunch of people here. It looked like folks got here about 6:45 or so, having a good time in the chat. I saw a few people pop in saying that they had to take off. 1 or 2 people said that they took a nap to make sure that they could be ready for the show. I know that it is a little bit late on the East Coast, but I definitely appreciate you guys hanging out with me just a little bit. Definitely want to give a shout out to all of the Blue Wrenches that are in here, the Patreon members, and then everyone else that is joining the live stream to spend a little bit of their Wednesday night hanging up. So I see here, Leonard says he picked up Werewolf by Night issue number 1, volume 3. He read it and says that it was indeed great. My man Steve says he picked up Thor. I have that Thor sitting right here, brother. See if I can find it real quick. Thor right here. Thor issue number 9. I have it. They made Donald a bad guy, so I'm actually looking forward to reading that. I talked to my guy at the LCS and he was saying that it's a little bit of a horror story. So I don't know. I don't know about this one, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. Let me see. I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. Shamar says he picked up Tales of the Teen Titans issue number 44. Says very good condition. Congrats on that. Comic Hunter says 10 of Swords issue number 2 were the best that he read this week. I think I have some of the 10 of Swords stuff over here. I have the Marauders and I also have the X-Men. I have not read either one of those books. Scrolling through some of the comments here. Scrolling. Oh, I lost the track of the chat. Let me scroll back up. Doug says he's making his run tomorrow. I definitely respect that one, brother. I was in between meetings and I was like, I need to get to the LCS real quick. So I ran. And what's crazy is I ended up running into somebody that recognized me from the show. Spent 15 minutes in front of the store talking to the guy. So scrolling through, Wes says he gets his pull list once a month. So he gets it next week. Brother, good luck. You are probably, dependent upon the size of your pull list, you are going to have a lot of stuff to read. Who is that? The Ghoul says he picked up Power Rangers, Wolverine, and the crossover. And the Wolverine, that was the, what was it? Red, white, and black. I think that was the one that was out today. And then crossover was Donny Cates. I have not read that one. And I think I've seen several people. Sully Two Kings had it posted up on his Instagram. I saw a while ago, but I have not read that one. Goose Fang Says he has not hit up the LCS yet, but hopefully tomorrow, fingers crossed there. Empire's End says Eternal Thunder, Thor, crossover, and 10 of Swords. There you go. Scrolling through the comments here. Scrolling. Got a bunch of Venom variant covers. There you go. And no one is surprised that you picked that up, brother, from Ablaze. That Conan, is it Conan related? Is it Conan? Like, I don't know. The Chimera. I don't really know the whole backstory with that one. I have not been paying close attention to that one. So scrolling down through the comments here. Happy Election Day Part 2. We are not going to talk about politics here, but if you do have a political related comic and you post it up on Instagram, make sure you tag me so that I can repost it in my story, because we are all about America. No matter what side you're on, America is still great. Scrolling through, Bub says he picked up that Thor issue number 9, 1 in 25 variant. Myth Lab is in the house. The OG Blue Wrench Tina is in the house. Here we go. Another Thor crossover, Firepower. Have not read that one. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Hasn't read any of them though. Maybe that's your order, your reading order that you just posted up right there. Maybe that is the reading order right there. My man Nosh is in the house. How you doing, brother? It is good to see you. Quest Dog says he snagged. I don't know, the 1 in 10. Oh, the crossover cover. Got it. All right. Scrolling through some of the other comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Scrolling through the comments. Brandon says he hopes to hit up his LCS tomorrow. There you go, Conan. Thank you, brother. Lex Luthor won the presidency in comics. There you go. I posted up on Instagram. What was it? My Superman book. Where Superman was taking the oath. I think I put up a Captain America where he was made president. Put up Prez issue number 1 from DC Comics. I think it was back in the 70s. Shout out to my man Chuck for hooking me up with an awesome AOK many months ago that allowed me to have all these political books in my collection, and I dust them off whenever I get a chance to. Shout out to Master Blaster. Says America. Throw up an American flag there, brother. Ooh. Year Zero, Volume 2, Issue number 1. I dig Year Zero. I dig this. It is a zombie comic, and I absolutely dig that one. No doubt about it. These publishers, and I say it all the time, the publishers right now are putting out some really fantastic content. So I need to send a quick message to someone. Right. So, all right. Scrolling through some of the comments there, seeing what else. I just Wes, you are one of my Canadian brothers to the north. You are just like you're like America adjacent. It still counts. All right. So shout out to all of the LCS owners out there, all the people that hit up their LCS, and all the people that thought about going to the LCS but did not get a chance to go. Make some magic happen, people. But speaking of LCSs, as I transition into my second segment here, one of the things that we have been talking about for like that last 8 months or so has been all of the things that DC has been doing with regard to distribution. So DC at around the early phases, if you will, of the shelter in place, they made a decision that they were going to transition from Diamond, that they were going to go with Lunar and UCS. And comic shops had to make some adjustments, right? Comic shops had to make some adjustments. They had to set up accounts with these 2 new distributors. DC made changes where they shifted New Comic Book Day from Wednesday to Tuesday. And they made these changes. And I think we and the local comic shops begrudgingly got on board with what they were doing. And then 6 months after that, DC decided that they were going to make a change. And we've spoken about all of this in great detail in various live streams over the last 8 months. DC made the decision recently that UCS was no longer going to distribute their comics, that they were going to go exclusively with Lunar. And now comic shops are having to make a transition from, if they were with Diamond, to UCS, if they were with UCS to now Lunar. And as a result of this, DC and /Lunar are putting some other restrictions in place. And they are putting criteria in place where if a local comic shop or a purchasing entity does not buy $500 worth of comics every single month, then they cannot get their comics, and 3 consecutive months or whatever of not meeting that minimum threshold, they actually will have their account suspended. And then there's some other criteria where you have to be a physical comic shop. You have to have a dedicated website. There's like 3 criteria that if you don't meet those 3 criteria, you also cannot do business with Lunar and thus cannot get DC Comics. And again, we've talked about this stuff at great length. And so what I wanted to do was, instead of me just talking about it and reading some of the notes that I find online and pontificating on it, I thought that I would actually invite a local comic shop owner to the channel so that we can hear his perspective on how he has navigated these waters over the last 8 months or so. And so I want to welcome to the show Juan, who is the owner of Comic and Figure Addicts in Union City, one of my local comic shops. Juan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Reggie, how are you?
I'm doing well, sir. It is good to see you. I had to take that banner off of your forehead.
Nah, it hides it.
Yeah, no, it's good.
My forehead less big.
How are things?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to thank you for agreeing to join me. I know Wednesdays are busy for you guys, but I appreciate you making a little bit of time to chat with me.
Of course, anytime, man.
So as you were sitting in the green room listening to me give that very brief setup of like what has happened over the last 8 months, did I get anything wrong in that? And if not, is there anything that you would want to add to like what has happened with DC over the last 8 months or so?
It's been frustrating, and I don't even want to say it's growing pains because it kind of came out of nowhere. The whole sudden change, people were dealing with COVID and all that stuff. And for it to happen just back to back, it was already enough having to deal with all the COVID stuff and being shut down and, figuring all that out. And DC just decides to throw this on top of the pile. I feel that DC should have done it 2 different ways. Either been like, all right, we're only going to go with Diamond until like, let's say December 2020. Starting January 1st, you go with either of these 2 companies. Well, now it's only one. But starting January, we're not going to be with Diamond anymore. Or at the very least, be like, all right, because I think we've talked about, I place my orders like about 3 months in advance for books. Be like, all right, well, you already placed the order for these books through Diamond. Starting the next month, you'll start with these companies, as opposed to canceling everything. So now I have to go back, see what I ordered from Diamond, make sure that I'm ordering it from Lunar, and making sure that I don't double order some things because thinking, oh, it didn't transition well or this and that. So that it was a lot to add on to like already frustrating times for me.
Yep.
Then the other thing that's happened recently is the whole shipping. Okay, DC wants their books out on Tuesday. For about a month, I wasn't getting my DC books until Friday. That's 3 days later. So how the hell am I supposed to have your product up on the shelf on Tuesday when I'm getting it on Friday? Now, I get it. That's not per se a Lunar thing or a DC thing. It's more of a FedEx thing. But still, I've rarely ever had a problem with UPS and Diamond with my shipments. But, 9 years that I've been open, I've lost maybe 3 or 4 boxes. Maybe a few shipments have been late. But with Lunar, it was like in the infancy of them distributing all the comics, I've had more bad weeks than I have good weeks.
Yep. And just to be clear, like you don't seem to have a problem with the fact that DC made a change. It was more like how the change was implemented and executed.
How it was executed
could have been better, could have been smoother, could have been more allowing, if you will, for those that have a process for how they're going to manage their business. Right.
Like I said, I think they could have handled it a lot better in that sense and been like, like I said, starting 2021, you won't order from Diamond, or you already ordered this from Diamond. Those books are still going to come from Diamond, but starting next month, you're going with this other company, as opposed to now. Like I said, I have to worry about what books I was still getting from Diamond and what books I wasn't getting from Diamond, and make sure I wasn't double booking myself. So I ended up with getting books from Diamond and Lunar for certain weeks. So that was kind of frustrating. Like I said, getting the books out, then wanting the books on Tuesday, to me really is kind of pointless, because I don't know about other stores. I can't speak for other stores, but for me, having DC books on Tuesday hasn't really made that much of a difference.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions.
Shows up Wednesday.
That was one of the questions I was going to ask is do you know what their rationale was for changing New Comic Book Day from Wednesday to Tuesday? Was there a rationale that was given?
Not that I've heard any. Yeah. Maybe just to stand out, make that dollar a little quicker. Hopefully, if you have only $20 to spend, you spend it on Tuesday on DC books, and then you don't spend it on anything else. But I don't know.
But have you noticed in the last 6 months, 8 months, whatever period of time, has there been an increase in foot traffic to the shop on Tuesdays as a result of them changing New Comic Book Day? And part of the answer might be no, simply because your books have been late more often than on time. But I know you talk to a lot of other comic shop owners. Have they seen any increased foot traffic on Tuesday as a result of the change?
Not that I've heard. I mean, the two other stores that I'm really close with, he puts his sales the book at midnight. So it's only maybe a couple hours difference for him. So I really haven't seen a big change at all. And then the other store that I'm close to, they were closed because they're inside a mall. So they've only barely been open maybe 2 or 3 weeks now.
That was Green Machine. Green Machine?
Yeah, Green Machine. So they have really no opinion on that at all. But like I said, for me, it really hasn't made anything. And like you said, and I said, it's hard to gauge something when more than 50% of the time I don't even have the materials to sell if I wanted to.
Yeah. And getting back to that is not something, if I heard you correctly, that you are blaming on Lunar. It is more about a FedEx delivery issue, right?
Right. Okay. So when Lunar first took over in I want to say maybe the first month of shipment, I was getting them on the Friday before the Tuesday they were supposed to get on.
I remember that. Yep.
And that was perfect. I was like, all right, that's great. I have 3 or 4 days to prep, unlike Diamond, which is the day before. That's great. That's fine. No quarrels at all. But then all of a sudden, everything just fell apart. The wheels just completely fell apart. And I was getting them on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I'm like, crap. Now I don't even have it for Wednesday Comic Book Day, let alone Tuesday that you want to sell them now. So I was just like, well, this isn't going to, if it's going to be like this, it's not going to work out. Now, like I said, I was still getting the tracking from Lunar, and they were still shipping it on the same day.
Yep.
So obviously it's not them, falling behind and getting the orders out. It was a FedEx problem with their delivery.
Yep. One of the big complaints that I've always heard about Diamond was the lack of care when it came to packing items. And you'll remember, like months ago, we had a conversation about that new box that they came out with, that crush resistant box. And the whole conversation was like, the boxes aren't getting crushed. It's how the books are getting put into the boxes that is part of the issue. It's a handling issue. I'm curious whether you have, late or not, seen an improvement in the quality of the DC books that have been showing up at your shop as a result of the change to Lunar.
I think Lunar's done a great job with the shipping. They usually do the comics inside a box, then bubble wrap that box and put it in a bigger box. So I haven't really had any problems at all with damages with Lunar. Even Diamond, I'm one of the last people to complain about it, because again, I could wrap comics and ship them out as best as to my ability. But once I drop it off at UPS and FedEx, if they're throwing the box around and stepping on it, that's not my fault.
Yeah.
You know, the box isn't meant to have, you know, 100 pounds of other boxes on top of them, you know, and mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, you know, a lot of people, I think, throw that blame on Diamond. And I'm like, because even my my UPS guy knows, he goes, oh, these are the comic boxes. I need to be more careful with these.
Mm-hmm.
Because before he would come in here and when he would deliver, he would put them sideways. So then all the comics are sliding to one side.
Yeah.
And then I told him, I'm like, hey, man, you know, these boxes that are this shape and these, can you be a little bit more careful for these and try to keep them flat because these are my comics. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And ever since then, he's always been careful about them.
Yep.
But, you know, there's like 5 other people that probably touch that box before he gets to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's the people that put it in the truck, the people that get it out of the truck, people that sort it, and then people that throw it in his truck.
Right.
So there's a whole bunch of hands on that box before it gets to him or me. And, you know, so who knows what the hell the people between there have done, you know?
There's certainly no Juan there being like, hey, there's comics in there. Can you please be careful with those, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you know, all the videos of the UPS guys kicking boxes and throwing them, and you know that opening scene from Ace Ventura and stuff.
Brother, I will tell you, my UPS guy was here at the house today, and we actually stood on my porch for like a good 8 minutes and just had a conversation. Like I am super good friends with FedEx and UPS and the Amazon people because they will take care of your stuff if you show them a little appreciation, you know?
Oh yeah, like both the locations I've had different drivers, obviously, but they like even know where I live. So sometimes they'll be like, "Oh, can I leave you your package here instead of taking it to the house?" I'm like, "Yeah, it'll make your trip shorter. Yeah, that's fine. Leave it here."
Yep.
You know, that's why I make sure, like, you know, if I know if it's their birthdays or Christmas, you know, always give them a gift or something to show that appreciation for them.
I'm more of a cash kind of guy.
Right. You know, I'll give them a gift with like a gift card to something if I know they like something, or, you know, movies or dinner or something like that. So, you know, smile appreciation goes a long way, especially with them, where most people are always complaining and bitching at them about stuff.
Yep.
So I always try to be nice to my drivers.
Juan, one of the other things I'm curious about is that you in this situation were extremely lucky in that you were with Diamond, you switched to Lunar, and you did not go to UCS and then have to switch again. Are all of the comic shops in our area also with Lunar, or with some of them with UCS? I'm curious.
I'm pretty sure they're all in Lunar because I think it was like cut in West Coast, East Coast.
Yep. So
if you were all East Coast, you were with them, and then West Coast was Lunar. So I think that's how it was broken up.
Yep. And have you heard any complaints online for any of the, because I know you're a part of a couple of different Facebook groups, right? And you talk to other owners outside of this area.
Right.
Have you heard any kind of complaining from those folks that were with Diamond, UCS, now Lunar? Any concerns there, or people like it is what it is?
About the change, or just
about the change, right? About the fact that they were with Diamond, then UCS, and now have to switch yet again to Lunar, right? I mean, any issues or concerns there that people have expressed?
Just your typical, like, you know, type of deal. Like, I just had to do this, 6 months ago, and now I have to do it again.
Yeah, typical stuff.
Just complaints like that, but nothing major, like, you know, I don't want to deal with them and stuff like that. It was just more of like, hey, you know, we've had to go through a lot of shit, and we've survived all of this, and now you know, it's not necessarily going to kill us to have to sign up now with Lunar, but it is kind of just like you're just sitting there poking at us and poking at us and poking at us.
Yeah.
You know?
So, I mean, on a good side, though, as I looked at some of the criteria that Lunar / Diamond have introduced, where they are now requiring that folks meet these criteria, right? Now, I don't know if you've heard about this, but the criteria around you either have to have a physical comic shop, you have to have a dedicated website with an e-commerce platform. It seems like to some degree that what they are trying to do is to maybe do away with some of those smaller places that might do like games and then do some comics on the side, and or try to support local comic shops a little bit better. Any thoughts on those criteria and why they may have put those in place?
I think it's more to support comic stores because Diamond has similar criteria.
Mm.
Again, it's been a while because I signed up for Diamond 9 years ago. But if I remember correctly, with Diamond, you had to order a dollar amount per year too. You had to hit a dollar amount, and it was like I want to say it was like maybe $10,000 a year.
I don't know.
I
I
don't
looked at
remember.
that once
Like I
upon a
said,
time, but I don't remember the number. To
like
be
I
honest.
said, it's 9 years ago that I signed out with Diamond. But Diamond had the same thing where you had to spend X amount, blah blah blah, this and that. You know, you had stuff like physical shops and all that. They were a little bit more lax.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember that they had a threshold that you had to hit money wise per year.
Yep.
Do I agree with the stuff that Lunar's saying? I kind of do. Because quite honestly, and it happens a lot more with toys than it does comics. I'm sure you know Entertainment Earth. You've heard of Entertainment
Yes.
Earth?
Yes.
So one of the kind of like beefs that I have with Entertainment Earth is, like, let's say I have an Entertainment Earth account. You can go and get a reseller's license, right? You pay your $30 a year, you have a reseller. Then you sign up with Entertainment Earth. And then you're starting to get your wholesale, but you don't have a store.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're a guy at your house, you know, that don't want to pay full price for stuff and maybe hook up some friends. Maybe you buy some extras to sell, but you're doing it not even part-time. You're doing part-time.
Yep.
You know, and Entertainment Earth really, for them, it's like they don't care. They're selling more cases than they would if they didn't, you know, sign you up. But to me, you know, someone like me, I'm like, well, no, that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's stopping anybody from signing up $30 a year and then having a wholesale account and then stop going to Walmart and Target and stores like mine from buying stuff?
Yep. Yep.
You know, I think I think they have to be a little bit more stricter in those senses and be maybe not necessarily have a physical brick and mortar store, but have an online store that at least has been open a year or two,
Mm-hmm.
that has, you know, a certain amount of sales per year, before they just willy-nilly give everybody. Even Diamond, I think, has started giving accounts to people that don't per se have a comic store, but they sell toys.
Mm.
You know, and then that's fine and dandy, but they can still order comics. So it's like, you're not a comic store, then you shouldn't be allowed to order comics.
Right.
But I see people that have, you know, stores that specialize on, let's say, pop vinyls, but they'll get comics here and there. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but they're still hitting that threshold because they're buying other toys.
Right. Right.
You know, with
Yep.
toys, it's easy to hit those goals. With comics, obviously, it takes a little bit more because they cost less. So I like the restrictions because, again, it's in this day and age where anybody can be an e-seller and sell stuff. It makes it a little bit harder and supports stores like us where, okay, not everybody can do it, and you have to physically go to a store or their website to buy stuff. Hot Toys Sideshow does it with Hot Toys, where, you know, it's, I think you have to be 30 miles from another person that has an account, because they don't want every store to have their product. Because if every store has their product, then, you know, you're only hurting the market.
Right.
You know.
Right. Yep. Very good.
So I totally agree with them having, you know, not high standards, but some standards to have an account. You know, it's no fun if everybody's doing it. So
well said, brother.
I think it protects stores like me, where it's like, all right, you know, don't cut them out. You know, let them survive and get a piece of the cheese too.
There you go. Everybody should get a little slice of the cheese. Well, Juan, I want to thank you, brother, for spending a little bit of time here with me, giving me a little bit of perspective on like what your journey has been like over the last 8 months with all of the distribution changes that DC has been implementing. I will be honest with you. It is good to hear that it's like not negative. I mean, it's most of what you had to say was like positive stuff about Lunar, which I think is really good.
Right now, the only thing that with Lunar that I think, I don't know if it's mishandling or what, is their toy department. So because the toys was part of it, all the DC toys, their statues and all that, Diamond isn't distributing those. Right now, with the whole COVID thing, DC shut down the toy department, the DC Direct toys and DC collectibles side of their business. But there was still stuff that was set to come out that's been produced. I don't know if Lunar hasn't gotten them, but other distributors like Big Bad Toy Store and stuff have gotten certain toys and Batman figures based on the new Batman animated book, the Adventure Continues book. They were supposed to come out like a month ago. Lunar still hasn't got them.
Oh, wow.
So right now, that's about the only problem that I per se have with Lunar is that where are these toys? And again, I don't necessarily blame Lunar. It's more of a DC thing of like, well, where's the shipment at? Where's it coming from and where is it at? Because I even emailed them and they're like, we haven't received them. And if they haven't received them, then it's, out of their hands. It's growing pains. They haven't been really doing this for a really long time. If these problems are still here like a year or two from now, then maybe, they got in over their head. But as of right now, I'm like, what little problems I've had with them, it's okay. You just chalk it up to growing pain.
There we go. And I think the good news is that they're in the process of leasing a new warehouse to take on the incremental work from a UCS. And there's rumors out there that as a result of UCS, that pickup of that business, Lunar's business could quadruple. That was the number that I saw, that I guess because of how they split it and or just the number of local comic shops on the East Coast, UCS had a lot of business that is now about to hit Lunar. So there could be additional growing pains, but you would like to think that they're going to process through those relatively quickly if they are indeed dedicated to this business in this space. And it seems like they are.
Hopefully. I mean, the one thing that I'd have to say about Diamond that I wish they would do, they used to, I think, have it back then, is have an East Coast distribution center and a West Coast distribution center. Maybe that's something that Lunar might be looking into doing, so that everything's not congested and coming out of one spot. Yeah. Maybe have an East Coast and a West Coast. Then that way it kind of lightens the load. And, I get my books maybe on time more, because it's not crossing the country like Diamond.
Standing up a DC distribution center is not an easy thing. But again, if they are committed to this space and they are going to be in it for the long haul, then it might, be in their best interest to stand up something more permanent that allows for faster, quicker delivery to parts of the country. So last question that I want to ask you, brother, we're going to be in this next segment talking about DC future state. Is there anything that you are excited about with this DC future state?
Not really. Hopefully sales are good. Money excites me.
Hey, money is exciting. Go ahead, finish your thought.
I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. Is it a cash grab? Is it, actually going to be good stories? Who knows until the books come out. I'm always of the mindset, until it's in my hands and I read it or I watch the movie or I watch the TV show, I won't pass judgment.
All right.
But then also on the same hand, my ideology is like, all right, you want diversity, you want this, you want that, then create new characters.
There we go.
Make Wonder Woman Brazilian now.
It's going to be interesting. And like I said, we are actually going to dig into this in the next segment. Juan, I want to thank you, brother, for giving me a little bit of time. I hope to see you this weekend. I know you are celebrating your 9th year in business this weekend. You are having a fantastic sale. I'm hoping to capitalize on that sale and come over there and pick up some of those books that we looked at before.
Maybe. I'll try to have them here for you.
All right, brother. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Anytime, man.
See ya.
Later.
Hey, my name's Doug.
My name is Wesley Campbell.
Matt Woods here. Hey, and I subscribe to Regie Collects on YouTube.
And I subscribe to Regie Collects.
And if you want to see the best creator content on all of YouTube,
and if you want some robust comic book conversations,
you should subscribe to Regie Collects too.
I encourage you to subscribe as well.
You will not be disappointed.
All right. So again, I want to thank Juan for giving up a little bit of his time to actually join me to be able to give us some insight into how things have been going. Give a shout out to all of those individuals that were just featured in that commercial. A couple of people hooked me up with some really awesome video clips that I was able to splice together and share there. So I want to thank those individuals. If you are watching this live stream right now, I want to let you know that this is indeed the Go Collect giveaway video for this week. And this week's book is right here. It is Wonder Woman issue number 184, 9.8 with white pages. Really awesome Adam Hughes book. And the phrase for this week, I want to throw it up here on the screen so that everybody can see it, is Kelly Rocks. In honor of my own personal Wonder Woman, my wife Kelly, I wanted to use her name as the phrase for this week. We actually celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary last month, so this is a little bit of a tribute, if you will, to my personal Wonder Woman. So hopefully you guys are able to enter this week's Go Collect giveaway, and a huge shout out to the folks over there at Go Collect for putting me in a position for the last 90 some odd weeks to be able to give away more than $15,000 worth of comics via my channel. Shout out to Lee Atkins for keeping track of all of those books and the dollar amounts associated with them. So shout out to you, brother, for doing all of that work behind the scenes. All right. So in this next segment, as you heard me allude to just a few minutes ago, we are going to talk about DC Future State. And I don't know if you guys have heard about DC Future State, but the people, as you just heard, have some mixed emotions about this event that is going to be taking place at the beginning of 2021, specifically in January and February. Essentially what DC is doing is putting a hold on their titles and their continuity, and they're going to tell some new stories with some new characters. And it's basically a futuristic look at the DC universe, like near and far are the words that they actually use. And there's going to be a series of like one shots and mini stories that are told over the course of this 2-month period. And then in March, they're actually coming right back to their regular storylines that would have, been running up until December of 2020. So I am no expert when it comes to DC and what's happening with DC. So I wanted to invite another guest onto the show to kind of help me maybe make sense of this a little bit. And so I want to welcome to the show, Joe. Joe, it is good to see you, brother. Welcome to Comics Today.
Wait a minute. Thanks for the welcome. But when I had my 39th wedding anniversary and I couldn't watch the Sunday night show, you gave me a shout out and congratulations. So since I'm on with you now, I can do it on the video and say congratulations, man, on your 5th wedding anniversary, you and Kelly.
Thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate that, man. It is. I tell people all the time, this is not my first rodeo, but hopefully it's going to be my best and last rodeo of my life. That is my goal. I spoke to my father-in-law couple of years ago, and he's been married to my mother-in-law for a while, and his wife before that, she passed away. He's married for like a couple of decades. And I said to him, Jim, what is the secret to a happy marriage? He looks at me, he says, learn these words. You could be right. And it works. He's like, you don't have to admit that you're wrong. You don't say that she's wrong. You say she could be right, because in many cases, I've actually found that my wife is indeed right. I just don't want to say
You're a smart man, intelligent man.
I told you, not my first rodeo, brother, All right, Joe. So I talked a little bit about DC Future State. And I wanted to talk about this because people have been asking me, what are my thoughts on DC Future State? What do I think? Well, I talk about it on the show. I'm glad that you have graciously agreed to actually join me here to talk about it. When did you first hear about DC's Future State? What were your initial impressions, and have those impressions changed over time in any way?
Well, I'm a DC guy. And I subscribe to DC Universe, and most of the books I pick up are DC. That's a whole nother story, which I can get into offline with you at some time. So I'd heard about this, but I thought that it was part of Dan DiDio's 5G, the 5 generations thing. I thought they were picking it up again because obviously it was dropped when he was let go as a publisher of DC.
Mm-hmm.
So I had heard about that there were going to be new heroes and whatever else. Obviously, we didn't know the specifics about the timing and the fact that they were dropping their core series for 2 months and that type of stuff. So, one almost took the words right out of my mouth. I was saying, okay, something else, because you got to think about this, right? With DC, you have all the crises that they've had.
Yep.
You think about some of the reboots that they've had, like the New 52 and all of that. And as I think I mentioned to you once before, I think DC has a big problem that Marvel would seem to have, but they don't let it bother them, and DC lets it bother them. And with DC, the problem is that they've got these heroes, these legacy heroes, that they feel that they have to keep going in the same way that they've always been going. So obviously like Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. Now in the New 52, the origins of Wonder Woman changed. Batman basically was, started over again, but Superman, if you remember, became kind of a different person. He took up with Wonder Woman, which was something that I kind of liked. I think I have all the Superman, Wonder Woman comics in my collection. That was kind of cool. I was the slowest slain person. How, come on, Wonder Woman's there for Pete's sakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, but what happened towards the end when they had that convergence thing, another kind of big crisis, that the New 52 Superman ends up dying, and you get this Lois and Clark miniseries, which incidentally I thought was very good. And it's an older Superman. It's kind of the same Superman pre-52. And Lois is there, and they got a son now. And so what they did is they brought him back. It's kind of that whole legacy system that they had in there. And a lot of us DC people kind of like that. My best friend John, who was reading comics with since we were like little kids, he's a big legacy guy. He hates any kind of changes. So he's not going to like this new deal that DC is doing,
right?
Because they're going to have a lot of different people there. And at least as I understand it, some of this is going to flow through into the core comics. How they're going to do it, we can talk about. But I think some of that is going to be there. They've hinted at it. I think Detective 1027 had a Dan Jurgens story in there, which I haven't read yet, but I do want to read it, where some of the 5G stuff was coming out, and it's kind of going to be a precursor to another January 2021 80-page book. I think it's called Generations or something along those lines.
Yep.
Which is going to be, again, some of the Dan DiDio stuff, but it's going to play into kind of this whole new future state scenario.
So it sounded like to me that your initial reaction was, here we go again.
Yeah.
With another reboot or another stutter step or another restart or whatever you want to phrase it. But it appears that this isn't really like a reboot, but we are getting like a pause to the existing continuity, which is a little different, right? I mean, it's a little different to say, we're going to stop telling the stories that we've been telling, and we're going to tell some new stories for like 2 months, and then we're going to go back to the old stories. That just seems weird to me, you know?
It's not going to be exactly that, though, as I understand it, because if you take a look, and you've talked about this on your show, DC Terminator ended a number of their different titles.
Yep.
Okay. And they were all kind of this month or next month, during this time. And as I understand it, because when you said we were going to talk about this, I did a little bit more background research. A lot of the core issues are ending their story arcs with the December issue. With Superman, Bendis is gone. I know you like Bendis, and I did a great job at Marvel, but like I told you, after a couple of issues, and I gave the other ones away. So anyway, so what they did was, it's clearly they were thinking about their stories are coming to a pause, the titles are coming to a pause, but the arcs, for most understand it, will also be ending at that time.
Okay.
So when they pick it back up in March, it's going to be kind of interesting as to what's going to happen with these new heroes. There's going to be a new Batman. Nobody knows who he's going to be, though we kind of think it might be
There's a couple of rumors about that.
People, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan Kent, I think, is going to become the new Superman.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a new Wonder Woman.
I think she's Brazilian.
Yeah, right. And Brazilian, right?
There's a new Aqua Woman.
Aqua Woman. And also, yeah, I think there's going to be a binary Flash, non-binary Flash, going to be a male. Jess.
I thought it was
Jess Chambers, which is kind of like Jesse Quick, but Jess Chambers or Kid Quick is going to be his name.
Yeah. I did see that.
And I think one of the things that is going to be happening here is they're developing all these new heroes, right? So they're going to have to do something with them, and that's really what the big question is.
So, like that's one of my questions, and you're breaking up, so I was going to jump in there. One of my big questions is, what are they going to do with some of these new heroes? Because my guess is that they're not going to do this for 2 months and then throw it away, right? Something's going to happen. And I don't think that I did as much research as you did, but one of the thoughts that I had was, are they potentially trying to set this thing up as like a new universe type of thing, right? If you guys remember, Marvel did the new universe, and I talked about that back in the 80s, or like an ultimate universe where they're going to have a separate type of continuity and tell these stories there. That was one of the things that was in the back of my mind. What are your thoughts as to what they may end up ultimately doing with these characters that they are introducing for this 2-month period? What are your thoughts?
See, I think that doing either a new universe. Remember, they always had the 52 different universe and so forth. They could have done something like that with this instead of making it a future state. You know, and I think that would have been okay. They could have went ahead with the stories. But the other thing they might do, I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan as well, right? So when the new Star Trek movies came up, they just started with, I guess they call it the Kelvin timeline. So they have the two timelines, the original one, and they have this new one. And so in the new one, some of the same things are there, some of the same people are there. The story's not exactly the same. So maybe they're going to do two different timelines. It is a future state, so it's time-based. Booster Gold, one of my favorite characters, I think is involved in this, as I understand it. And so it could be that, Booster has a lot of issues and sometimes screws things up. So he might screw something up where there's a different timeline. And so going down the future, these different heroes emanate almost kind of like the 5G thing. They emanate and become the next generation of heroes, but not necessarily, as I've indicated, kind of this legacy hero scenario doesn't mess up their legacy hero stories. That to me would be cool and good and be interesting. But DC being what it is, they're probably not going to do that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and you've brought up a couple of times the 5G. As I was doing my research for this, what struck me is that I remember Jim Lee, and I want to read the quote here. He says he actually went on record at Fandom saying there won't be a project called 5G or a big reboot or whatever. We really want to focus on individual titles and organically build up individual characters over the course of the next year. That was like in September. And now in October, November, we hear that there is essentially like some stuff that is happening that is a big event. It's just 2 months, right? And some of the elements from Dan's 5G initiative are part of the future state. And it's like, whether you call it the future state, future state or 5G or reboot, some of those elements are still there. Would you agree with that? And again, I think you've touched on that a couple of times.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that DC is doing, and they keep on, the new DC universe is going to have more of this, and they're already doing it. It's kind of that digital first thing that they're doing. One of the things that I could see with this after the 2 months is that they bring some of these characters, and hopefully they do it in a logical way, whether it's a different timeline or whatever way they want to do it, or they just say, this is what's happening, 50 years in the future, whatever it happens to be. But if they do it that way, I'm thinking what they might do is take some of these characters and make, have the digital comics there, see what the appetite is for these characters before they decide to put them into the print media, potentially. and do it that way.
That is actually a pretty solid thought. And I talked about that before in my previous videos, but I did not make that connection for this one, because you could be right. They could do this thing for 2 months, put it out there, shift it to digital first, see whether there's an appetite. And if there is, then maybe eventually bring it back to print. That's actually not a bad idea, because again, to your point, if the story arcs that they're telling now end in December, they can just pick up with a new story arc in March, and then these other things can be digital at that point, and everything kind of continues along. Very, very interesting. Go ahead. You want to jump in there?
Now, my point is, what still is out there and is not clear, at least from the stuff that I've taken a look at, is how these characters are going to interplay with the core characters, with the legacy characters, and whether or not, it is going to be, hey, it's 50 years in the future, or whether they're going to somehow bring them into the core continuity in some way.
It was a little mixed for me on some of this stuff, and I actually want to share my screen here real quick. I want to share, this is actually from the DC Future State website that DC actually set up. And you'll see here that what they are doing is actually broken into 3 buckets. There's like the Batman family, there's a Superman story, and then, Superman family, and then there's the Justice League family. In each one of those buckets, there are a series of one-shots and mini stories that are going to be told. But here it actually talks about how this regime has taken over control of Gotham. Everyone's under constant surveillance. They talk about the fact that Batman has been killed as I read this. Right. And then in one of the articles that I was actually reading, it basically said that Bruce Wayne wasn't dead. He was actually going to be this dark detective in this dark detective series down here with Grifter and also Red Hood. Right. So it depends upon like what you read, whether there's conflicting information between some of these things, right? Because he can't die in one part and be alive in another part if the time period for when these stories are being told is essentially the same, that being 50 years or whatever in the future. So it'll be interesting to see what is actually speculation at this point versus what is the reality when this stuff gets introduced at the beginning of 2021.
See, it's kind of interesting because if you have a good writers, you can do a lot of different things. I don't know many people here remember that Batman was dead. Then what we found out was that he was actually thrown into the past and ended up being a series of comic books where he was in different areas of the past and working his way back up to the front. During that time, Grayson became Batman, and there was a whole new Batman and Robin. And so they had that going for a while until Bruce Wayne made his way back to the present. So, I mean, a lot of different things can happen here. And so my point, I guess, being is that, yeah, he could be dead in one place and live in another for all we know.
It's all comic book logic, right? And if you have a good writer, to your point, if they can make it all make sense in your mind, then you're like, oh, cool, it's perfect. But if there's like these hanging threads everywhere and it's just kind of messy, then that's when, things kind of fall apart. So it'll be interesting. So as I mentioned there's basically these 3 buckets, right? There's the Batman family, the Superman family, there's the Justice League family, and their stories and arcs within those. As you thought about all of those titles and all those series that are going to be introduced in this 2-month period, I'm curious what it is that you might be most excited to actually read.
I don't know that I'm excited about any of them particularly, to quote Juan, but I think it's more of a wait and see thing as well. But I'll tell you this. When I was young, I was really kind of more of a Superman fan. He was on TV. George Reeves. I used to watch it on TV.
Right.
So to me, that was kind of a big deal, because here's this guy. He's on television. Like it's almost like he's real. But I really got excited when the Justice League came out. And as I think I mentioned to you once before, one of the things that I'm working on is Volume 1 of the Justice League, and I got maybe about another 50 comics out of 261 or whatever to get. And so I'm working on that. So when but as an adult, I love Batman. And a lot of the Batman stories are really, really good. So the problem is, if I want to read all the Batman, that's like 24 some odd comics coming out in 2 months. I wrote them down, actually. If I want to read all the Superman, it's like 23. And the Justice League related ones are 17. So I'm not going to buy 60 some odd comics. I know that. All right. Because then I can't buy Spider-Man, even though they're not that great. I still buy and collect Spider-Man. But so I think that what I might do is go to the Justice League part and pick up the pure Justice League ones. Some of the ones that might have more than one character in them, because that's kind of always was my deal if you have like multiple characters. But I'm kind of intrigued by some of the Batman, and I'm intrigued about the Superman one where he's kind of doing a World War Hulk. You know, he's going out into the world, and he's got one of the photographs I saw. He's got like this, I don't know, he's bare chested with some Roman type of gear on, and he's ready to fight and all that. And one thing that I felt for a lot of writers with Superman is what kind of stories can you write about him? And I think this might be a good one. I mean, because he's out there in the universe, and occasionally he can let loose. And here it looks like he's going to let loose.
It'll be interesting because it says here he travels to War World to rise through the ranks of gladiator combat in order to defeat some whoever, right? Right. It'll be interesting again to kind of see like what happens when he goes off, and to your point, just like cuts loose, because that's like, I guess, the thing that's going to happen, while his son adopts his mantle and becomes essentially Superman. So you get to have your classic Superman at the same time as you get to see the son kind of take up that mantle and see what he does with it. So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
So Justice League, maybe a couple of those. I might look into that Superman one, at least pick up the first one and see what it's like. And I'll probably look at the Batman and see which one of them makes the most sense for me.
There are a lot of books there, brother. To your point, there are a lot. And so it'll be very interesting to kind of see, again, what the sales look like for these titles. I mean, we just heard from Juan that he's not terribly excited about it. You're basically saying the same thing, and everybody's like, to some degree or another, taking a wait and see type of approach to see like maybe it'll be good, and to some degree or another, at least there is that open-mindedness to what is being proposed versus your buddy who might be resistant to everything because he's more a traditionalist, So it'll be interesting to see how this is received. And I think when I talk to a lot of people out there, people seem to be very concerned about the fact that it was going to be yet another reboot, that they were going to get rid of their favorite characters and they were going to introduce all of these new characters, and that they were just going to have to get on board with it. At least to the point that we've discussed, it's a temporary thing. And it is to be determined what this might look like in the future. And that might be one of the better moves that maybe DC has made. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Could be. So I think that people, look, they're in business, right? And they may be getting, as you've mentioned a bunch of times, some pressure from, upstairs. Mm-hmm. And so they've obviously, I think Dan DiDio spent a lot of time trying to develop this thing. So they had it in the can there, right? They spent money, they have in the can, they had a bunch of writers ready, to take care of this. And so I think what they did was then Lee came on DC Fandom and said, we're going to go kind of this diversity route and all the rest of the type of stuff. And so what better way to kind of join the two together by taking a look and saying, what can we get from what Dan had together and what now Lee is saying we should do? And so let's put them together, develop kind of this new process. We won't call it 5G, we'll call it future state, and we'll be able to make some money doing that. Is it a money grab, as Juan said? That was the first thing that I thought of, because I'm saying, okay, so I can't buy the books that I like for 2 months. So either I'm going to sit back here and do nothing, or I'm going to buy your books, right?
So again, it's going to be super interesting. But I think, to your point, I think that a lot of time, money, energy, and effort have been devoted to the 5G initiative, and they could not just throw it away.
Right.
No one would have tolerated all of that artwork and all of that money being spent on those stories. So what they're doing is they're cleaving off parts of it, and they're jiggering it with some things, and they're just going to execute it. And I'll be honest, fingers crossed that DC Future State is good. That is my hope. That is always my hope, that whatever these initiatives are, that they are good, because I never wish ill on anyone. I hope that maybe there is some really good stuff that actually comes out of this, because truth be told, in my opinion, I think DC is telling some really good stories right now. Right.
Mhm.
If you look at the three Jokers, I thought that was really incredible. There's a lot of good stuff that they're doing right now. And I would hate to see that get jacked up for a money grab at the start of a new year, so we'll see how it plays out. Any parting thoughts for us, Joe, as we wrap up here?
The only thing I would say is that in some ways this is nothing new, except it's more focused, with the time and the scenario. They've done things like Elseworld scenarios all the time, where they took their legacy heroes out, put them in another situation where it wasn't part of continuity. This is a little different, and I think they're investing the time and the money here because they're looking to the future and saying, can this work for us in the future too? So the idea of taking stories out of continuity is not new, but the way they're doing it here, I think, is new.
Agreed. And again, maybe they're looking for some of that Miles Morales, Camilla Khan kind of magic, right? That next generation of heroes that folks can actually connect with. To your point, instead of it always being about Bruce Wayne, it might be about Luke Fox potentially moving forward, because that's the rumor for the new Batman. And so they have the writer for, 12 Years a Slave, that is going to be the writer for Batman, and he, I think his percentage keeps going up. I think it was like at 40% it may be a person of color, and then it was like 80% or something like that. So a lot of people are betting that it's actually going to be Luke Fox, son of Lucius Fox. And if you look at the prices of his first appearance, I think a lot of people are speculating that is exactly who it's going to be. So it'll be interesting to see how, the Aqua Woman and the Flash character and all of these others, to see how they perform over time. So, all right, Joe, brother, I want to thank you again for taking a little bit of time to actually join me for this live stream. I forgot to put your banner up there, so I want to throw it up there. I know.
I was thinking about that the whole time. I couldn't concentrate.
I'm sorry, brother. There's like 1,000 moving parts on this side, but you didn't even see my for number 3 sitting there in the back of me. Oh, we saw it.
It
was brought up in the comment section. Jerry, bearded comic collector, was like, I love that FF over there. I personally was distracted by the gorgeousness that is that. That is a nice book, brother.
Okay.
That is a title that I would like to work on. But there are certain books in that run that scare me. I'll be honest with you.
Well, I have number 2 as well, but the reason I took this one is if you take a look at it, it says the greatest comic magazine in the world. So I figured, why collect anything else?
Like the Gibbon is the next superhero. Except on that book, they got it right, because that is an amazing book. But All right, Joe, thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate it, and I will talk to you soon.
Happy to do it. Thanks.
Take care. All right, so there you go. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me a little bit here. I want to thank both the guests that we had on tonight's show, Juan and Joe. I think they both did a fantastic job joining me and talking about the various topics that we wanted to cover off on. If anyone came into the live stream a little bit late, I definitely want to throw this back up here. This is the Go Collect giveaway video for this week, and this book could actually be yours. It is Wonder Woman issue number 184, 9.8 with white pages. This is this week's book, and the phrase, and I will throw it up here on the screen one more time, is Kelly Rocks. Kelly Rocks is the phrase that you need to plug in onto the community tab to be in the running to win this awesome book. And all you have to do is basically tune in to the Sunday show, the Ready, Set, Go preview show, to find out if you are indeed the winner. So I want to pop back to the chat real quick to see what you guys are talking about. Thank you, Almighty Liger King. Awesome chat, says Sully Two Kings. Thank you, brother. I definitely appreciate that. Little Wonder Woman. Thank you, Jerry. I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, and Wonder Woman is going to be the giveaway. So good luck to everybody out there. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. And as always, if you guys need to reach out to me, you can actually do that on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. Take care.
Hey, my name's Doug.
My name is Wesley Campbell.
Matt Woods here. Hey, and I subscribe to Regie Collects on YouTube.
And I subscribe to Regie Collects.
And if you want to see the best creator content on all of YouTube,
And if you want some robust comic book conversations,
You should subscribe to Regie Collects too.
I encourage you to subscribe as well.
you will not be disappointed.